Sophie and Joe have been dating for 2 years now, and they've been managing their life financially. Joe came up with a plan of traveling to the UK to better his life so that he will come back and marry Sophie. With the love both of them share so much, Sophie believed in Joe to the extent that she contributed financially for Joe to travel to the UK. After Joe left for UK, Sophie have been trying in communicating with Joe but to no avail. They lost contact and did not talk to each other for 3 years. Sophie decided to move on with her life and started from the scratch by being a maid in another rich man's house to further her own education. Sophie works for the couple called Mr. Banks and Claire. So Mr. and Mrs. Banks. And Claire took interest in Sophie because of the way she is hardworking, respectful, and very responsible. Mr. Banks and Claire are having marital issues due to their childlessness. Claire has gone to different hospitals to find out if she is the problem due to them unable to have their own child. Mr. Banks has also assured his wife that he is not a problem and that with time and God being on their side, they will have their own children. Also, God is the giver of children. Claire started getting worried because it's been 5 years and there is no sign, no miscarriage, no sign of pregnancy in this marriage. So she decided to go outside of her marriage to find out if she is the problem or her husband is the problem. Her best friend called Miss Anne gave her this advice that she has to try a younger man or a younger boy to find out if she can actually get pregnant, because it might be that the doctors are not finding the real problem wrong with her and it might be spiritual, unless of course she try someone else outside of her marriage, just to be sure if she isn't the problem, neither is her husband. Miss Anne gave this advice to Claire. Days later, Claire decided to think about the whole situation. Whilst thinking about it, Sophia met her in the hall and asked her if there is anything she could help with. Claire was confused and did not open up to Sophie about her marital issues, but Sophie gave her advice that whatever she's going through, there is always a solution. Claire was happy to hear Sophie give her a simple and short and encouraging words from her. A week after, Miss Anne introduced a young boy to Claire as Joe. Joe was invited to Claire's house to have an intercourse with her. Unfortunately, Joe met Sophie there. Sophie fainted upon seeing Joe in the house. Hours later, Sophie became conscious and saw that Joe was the one who was sleeping with Claire. Claire was confused as to the reason why Sophie fainted, but she lied that she was just tired and was shocked to see the young handsome man in her matrimonial bed. Claire advised Sophie to keep everything to herself and keep quiet and not to report this issue to her husband. Sophie promised to keep her little secret safe with her. Whilst Joe and Claire had their nice time, Sophie was in the kitchen and immediately Joe came to the kitchen to have a conversation with Sophie. Joe told Sophie that when he got to the UK, he was duped and deported. So he has to hustle hard again and he finds himself in this business. So he does not love any of the women, neither does he love Claire. It is strictly business. So Sophie and Joe exchanged contact and started their relationship again from where they stopped. Joe advised Sophie that Madame Claire is really rich, and since they are having this secret over her, they need to blackmail her and take a lot of money from Madame Claire. Sophie was not buying this idea, but Joe convinced her that if they are able to get this amount of money from Claire, they can travel together this time around and start their life all over again as a couple. Sophie told Joe she is going to think about it. Miss Anne called Joel and told him that the amount they asked from Claire has been paid, so he needs to come for his share. Joe went to meet Miss Anne in the car and took his share of the transaction that went on between him and Madame Claire. This went on for some few months, Joe visiting the house and having intercourse with Claire. After exactly 5 months, Claire realized that she was pregnant, and she was shocked that this could happen. Claire told her best friend Miss Anne about the situation. Miss Anne was happy for her, but she had other plans. Miss Anne immediately told Joe that Madame Claire is pregnant for him. Joe instantly said he is a young boy and he is not ready for any pregnancy. Miss Anne came with a plan that Joe needs to blackmail Claire to take some amount of money so they could share that up, or they would tell her husband that she has been sleeping with him for the longest and she is pregnant. Claire was immediately not happy about this blackmail and went on to pay a huge amount of money to Joe. A week after, Joe went on to blackmail Claire again and threatened to tell her husband about the situation. The amount Joe was requesting for this time around was double of what he received earlier, and Claire was so confused and said she could not pay such an amount. Claire called on Miss Anne and told her that her boy Joe is blackmailing her again. Miss Anne said she can't control an adult, so she would try to talk to Joe about it and see if he can stop blackmailing her. Whilst this was going on, Sophia was also thinking about her own issue, and she came up with her own plan and contacted Claire that she needs some amount of money from her for her schools and also to start her own personal business. And because of that, she wants this amount of money from her so she can leave the house, or else she is also going to tell her husband about the situation that has been going on in the house. Claire was confused but was also very understanding because she knew that Sophie was in need of this money and also know how good and responsible Sophie is. So she obliged with her request and gave Sophie the amount she wanted. Sophie thanked Madame Claire, packed her things and left the house. Whilst she was packing her things, Mr. Banks walks in and realized that Sophie was packing her things to leave the house. So he confronted Sophie and asked why she was leaving. Sophie said it is time she moved on with her life and she has been able to save amounts of money, and with that she is going to continue her education and do her own business. Mr. Banks was happy about that and wished her well before he left. Mr. Banks walked to his matrimonial room and heard his wife Claire on the phone shouting and begging. Mr. Banks walks in and Claire immediately ended the call. He asked Claire what was the problem, and immediately Claire confessed to him that he was not able to impregnate her, but she was able to get pregnant outside of their marriage because she cheated on him. The boy she slept with has been blackmailing her for some time now. She made the first payment and he came back again with another amount of money. Mr. Banks was confused but was not angry at her. Claire became confused as why her husband was not angry that she cheated. Immediately, Mr. Banks confessed that he cannot impregnate a woman. At this point, Claire was angry at Mr. Banks for lying to her before marrying her, and also knowing how she wanted a child in a marriage, why he lied to her before marrying. She did not know that he could not impregnate a woman and hold on to her marriage ties and vows for 5 years plus now. Claire broke down into tears as Mr. Banks consoled her. He promised to take care of her and the pregnancy. Mr. Banks also asked Claire to keep the pregnancy as theirs, and she should call Joe up so they could make the payment upfront. And he is going to make some necessary documents so that Joe will sign this document to show he is never going to show up in the future to claim the pregnancy or claim the child. Claire was happy that at least her husband is on with this situation and has accepted the situation and the pregnancy. They called up on Joe to come into the house, asked him to sign the papers and made a payment into his account. Joe called Miss Anna that Mr. Banks and Madame Claire have made the payment, so they will meet up to make the necessary sharing of the money. Joe went to his apartment and met Sophie there. Joe broke the great news about the money he has now from the business he has been doing for a while, so they are ready to travel. Sophie was also happy for him and asked him that they should share a drink together. When they shared a drink together, hours later, Sophie wrote a letter to Joe that she has packed her things and left the house and also cleared his bank account because of what he did to her 2 years ago. Joe became devastated, shouting, and was so much into regret on how Sophie could do this to him. Miss Anne came to Joe's house to ask for his percentage from the transaction. Joe broke down and told Miss Anne that Sophia has taken all the money in his account and he has no other money. Miss Anne did not believe Joe, so he was being threatened by Miss Anne that he is going to get him arrested. Sophie went back to Mr. Banks and Claire and told them what she had planned with Joe about the blackmail she did earlier to her. So she came in to apologize to Claire and Mr. Banks and also offered some percentage of the amounts she collected from Claire back to them. Claire told her that she needs to keep that amount. She is a good girl and what she has show how integrity she is to people she has worked with. Sophie told them she is traveling to the UK to continue her education. Claire and Mr. Banks were happy for her. They also told her about their incoming baby. Miss Anne and Joe became enemies whilst Joe was left on the streets to start struggling again. Miss Anne landed herself in serious problem where she got arrested for blackmailing another couple.
Thanks for watching this recap. This channel brings you the best Nollywood movies.
We save you time and money. Don't forget to subscribe and like our videos for more movie recap.